St. Petersburg is often compared to Amsterdam or Venice because of its bridges, islands and canals. But the greatest difference between the two cities is that St. Petersburg is not sinking. From the very beginning, Peter the Great ordered to reinforce the soil in front of every building. Piles were driven into the ground. That's why St. Petersburg is not sinking. According to the statistics, 85% of the residents own their apartments, 15 still rent them. The rent depends on the number of square meters. We pay by the square meter. If you own your apartment, then you don't pay the rent, you pay annual property tax. And we measure our apartments not by the number of bedrooms in them, because it is still common for us to have two generations living in one apartment. A sitting room can be a sitting room during daytime. At night it is converted into a bedroom. But by the number of square meters in your apartment. St. Petersburg was the first city in Europe which had a regular planning. Unlike London or Paris that grew out of small villages, St. Petersburg was planned from the very beginning. On the left is one of the buildings of the mining university, and the students of this university are obliged to wear uniforms. This is the only university in town that requires to wear uniforms. The school year and academic year at universities began on the 3rd of September. Industry of St. Petersburg. 75% of all the ships in Russia are designed and launched in St. Petersburg. The Neva River is not a very wide or long river. It's 75 kilometers long, 50 miles long. It takes its beginning from Lake Ladoga and flows into the Bay of Finland. It is navigable from April to November. Normally in winter it freezes over. It's a very fast river. It flows at the speed of 3 miles per hour and it empties as much water as the Nile in Egypt. On the left is the Russian Orthodox Church of Our Lady of Assumption, 19th century church. The main religion in this area is Russian Orthodox, but alongside with Russian Orthodox churches there are Catholic Lutheran churches, 2 synagogues, a Buddhist temple and a few mosques. the smallest island of St. Petersburg, Rabbit's Island. with the Peter and Paul fortress on it. That's the place where the city started its existence in 1703. Now there is a museum on the grounds of the fortress. The building with the spire is the Peter and Paul Church. It's a burial ground of Russian Tsars. In the former mansion, there is a museum of musical instruments. We are crossing the Fountain River. On the left is the former royal palace of the 18th century, the one with the white columns. It was put up in the middle of the 18th century. Now in it there are clubs for kids. It's called the Center for Youth Creativity. In 1858, it took 40 years to build it, and now it's both a Russian Orthodox church and a museum of Russian mosaics and paintings. From outside it is decorated with 112 granite columns. Each column weighs 100 tons. In front, a monument to Nicholas I, Russian Tsar, grandson of Catherine the Great. It's a unique monument. It has only 2 points of support, back legs of the horse. Normally, equestrian statues have 3 points of support. St. Isaac's Cathedral on the left, built in 1858. It took 40 years to build it. And now it's both a Russian Orthodox church and a museum of Russian mosaics and paintings. From outside it is decorated with 112 granite columns. Each column weighs 100 tons. In front of us is a former royal palace of the 19th century, built for the daughter of the Russian Tsar Nicholas II. Headquarters of the Navy. On the right is the Winter Palace. On top of the Winter Palace there are 170 statues representing Roman and Greek gods and goddesses. Now we are crossing Palace Bridge, 1916. It's a drawbridge. And the river to the right is the widest. It forms two arms here. This is the delta of the Neva River. The green and white building with the tower on the left was the first public museum in Russia, opened in the 18th century. It is known as the Chamber of Curiosities, Oddities and Rarities, Kunstkammer. To attract visitors to that museum, Peter ordered to serve vodka and pastries, and the ladies had a choice between vodka and coffee, which was also a novelty at that time. Peter traveled to Europe and he introduced potatoes and coffee to Russia.